I got here early for the meditation, and I was trying to write my talk, or what Spirit wanted me to say. And the first word I wrote down was weather. Other than the weather side. Hey, has anybody heard of the medium Thomas John? Have you heard of him? And I'm going to get the name wrong probably. And Mary and I, my wife and I, stumbled upon him. He does these readings. He does like a share ride, a ride share, or Uber, and he just gives readings to people, unsuspecting people come in. It's quite incredible. And if I may have gotten the name wrong. So I saw he's going to be in Fort Lauderdale, and with the Spirit Circle, and everybody gets a reading, and they were going, oh, I wonder how many people are going to be there, and it's limited to 8 people. Wow, I wonder how much he charges. $500 a person. So with my math, I broke that out to 8 people and 2 hours, 15 minutes, right? So for a 15-minute reading, you pay $500. Welcome to the Church of Barkins. I mean, obviously a real serious group. Okay. This is new material, folks. I'm going to fire the writer. I am going to be selling my book afterwards. Annette gave me the opportunity. It sells for $12.95, selling for $10. I think a number of you have the book already. Thank you. And I love this book, again, because Spirit wrote it. I really let go and let Spirit write a lot of it. And now I'm writing another book that I thought I was just about finished, with the outline, with about 7, 8 pages of single-spaced notes. And a woman that I gave a reading to asked me a question. And the question was, basically, where do people go when they take their own life? Where do they go? I went, huh. And the way she phrased it, I can't remember how she phrased it, I said, that's a good title for a book. Because for some reason, I do connect with souls who have taken their own lives. And with the person across from me. And I can't imagine. I haven't lost a lot. I've lost a friend, a co-worker. Our youngest son lost someone who took his own life at the age of 16. I work with, I've mentioned this before, a group called From Grief to Hope. And I do a group reading for them probably 2-3 times a year. And some of them, a good portion of them, have lost their children. And unlike some religions, we all know, you all know here, we all know, they're not languishing in what we would normally call hell. They're not condemned forever. So I said, well, Spirit, do you want me to write this book? This is a tough subject to approach. It's actually a tough subject to talk about. Because normally I like to joke and have a good time, and you can't have a good time. This is a pretty serious subject. And I remember when the young man, my youngest son's friend, took his own life, and we went to the funeral home, and then the funeral, and then the ceremony at the burial place. And I remember walking up to the coffin and seeing the young man. I didn't know him. He was one of our youngest son's, Andrew's, best friends. And he had just talked about him the day before, saying he plays bass, and my youngest son played bass. And I'd like to buy this bass pedal from him. And my wife said, who handles all the budgets, which is good, she's very good at that, said, okay, this is going to be part of your Christmas. It's about 2 weeks for Christmas. Next day I'm at a meeting down south, and my youngest son calls crying, saying that, remember I talked to you about, I'm just going to use the initial, I don't want to use his real name, I'm going to use the initial J. Yeah, how's he doing? Well, Dad, I got to school and he took his own life last night. And I remember going to the wake, looking at the parents going, what in the world is holding them up? Their only son. What is holding them up? And I call it the carnage and the spiritual body bags that are left behind in the wake of someone doing that. So I said, Spirit, I kind of need a sign about this book. And I'm thinking, should this be the next book I write? I mean, it takes me 2 years to write a book. So next day I'm doing, this was about a month ago, next day I'm doing a book signing at the Spiral Circle, if you're familiar with the Spiral Circle. Beautiful store. Those girls have done a tremendous job with that store. It's on Thornton, kind of downtown. By the way, if I sway back and forth, it's because I've had 2 back surgeries, and this is how I keep moving, so sorry about that. And a lady that I had given a reading to walks up. Not the same lady, it's a different lady. And we're talking, and I tell her about the book I'm going to write. She said, maybe that needs to be your next book. And I go, check. Okay, Spirit, I get it now. So, where do these lost, quote, lost souls go? You know, some religions, even Catholicism, may say that it's more about purgatory or a holding pattern, and we all know, see, the thing that you have as a big advantage of spiritualism is you know they're not lost forever. You know where they are. You know where they're going to eventually climb up as they get more light, more enlightenment, raise their vibrations. You know this, and so you're in a perfect position to help people who struggle with this. Because every time, I mean, I've probably given readings to about, I don't know, maybe 100 people who've lost a loved one. And a lot of them are children. Not young, but I mean as young as 16 all the way up to 30s or 40s, what have you. And they have guilt. There's something they could have done. I did a reading for a young lady, she was about 20. And out in Phoenix, there's a big group out there I do readings for. And her friend came through from high school. He had taken his own life either right after he graduated from high school. She said, there were signs. I should have seen the signs. Well, to me, signs are like the signs you see on a highway. As they get closer, you get to read them, and before you can read all of them, you're past the sign. And so we do our best, right? And he came through and said, listen, you could have stopped me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. On Sunday, I'd have done that. So I got to thinking, and I hope this is making sense. I got to thinking, boy, I didn't take much notes, come to think of it. I'm glad we're cutting off at 9:25. I got to thinking, I started doing some research. What is planned and what is impulsive? And they have interviewed all these people who attempted to take their own life, but they backed down. And 2/3 of them said it was impulsive. And I'm sitting there laying going, but even in the impulse, there's a planning. There's something deep, very deep down within the soul. You know? And if the soul is the essence of who we are, and there could be a lot of definitions of what a soul is, but if soul is the essence of who we are, then there's something deep buried. I'll never tell someone that I'm sitting across from me, well, he or she took their own life because it's part of their soul contract. I don't want to insult them like that. We may believe that's true, but I don't want to give them more guilt, like there's nothing you could have done. And a lot of times there isn't. And then I read a study that backed up what Spirit was telling me. Yeah, there is a certain amount of planning. So the point is, the book is going to be probably a year from now. I'm not here to promote the book. I'm here to talk about, like a lot of people at one time or another have considered taking their own life, right? And the studies they did was, it's not that they wanted to die. They just didn't want to live the life they had. They wanted another life, and they saw no way out of getting another life. So Spirit greets them, so to speak. And I was just sitting back, again, if you get here early for the meditation that Rosie leads, I heard Amazing Grace on the flute. It just sounded so beautiful. You know, I grew up Methodist and Protestant, and Amazing Grace, everybody stood up. If you didn't stand up, we knew you weren't a Protestant. You got to stand up in Amazing Grace, right? We go, okay, they're not one of us. And if you stand up in the Catholic Church, they'll go, okay, no, you got to sit down. We don't stand up during that song. It's just how it is. You And I'm sitting there going, well, thinking, back there, well, Spirit, where do these souls go? And the Spirit came back, and to me, Spirit is God's breath of divine energy. You know, I talk about that all the time. You can have your own description, that's fine. You know, in Catholicism, or in Christianity, seriously, Jesus doesn't become Christ until the Holy Spirit, God's breath of divine energy, comes upon him. And we're all like that, right? Whether you say God, infinite intelligence, God doesn't care. God's not a man. I said this before, everybody thinks God looks like Moses. You know, Moses, I've said this before too, probably struck around going, people think of God. I know. God's like, knock it off, Moses. And God is energy. God is love. God is everything. God, we think of up there. So, they came to me with a phrase. I said, where do these souls go? Where do they? And Spirit said, energy field. I went, energy field. I've never heard that description before. I've done a lot of readings, not as many as... And by the way, Annette was the one who introduced my wife and I to the world of metaphysical gifts. And they said, yeah, energy field. Depending on your energy, depending on your vibrations, depending on how high you ascend, there's an energy field. And I went, God, that makes sense. Yeah. And they're not forever lost. God does not abandon his children. His children, I'm sorry. Protestant. God does not abandon the children. How about that? Does that sound better? Yeah, hopefully it does. And so, my last comments on this, because we're going to welcome people to the church, aren't we?
Yeah, but finish. Do what you need to do. I'm not trying to cut you off.
Well, you keep throwing things at me. It keeps hitting my legs. I don't know if that's a sign or not. It's like, I'm like, anyway, the last thing I want to say is, the last thing I want to say is, we know where these souls are going, and it's comfort. And I think, as spiritualists, everybody here, you can comfort people somehow, either before the act is done or after the act is done. You know, no parent wants to hear that their child is in hell. You know, physically, hell doesn't exist, so we know that. But nobody wants to hear that. Oh, sorry about church. And you look at all the religions. I looked at all the religions, how they define. I don't want to say suicide. No, I just said it. I hate to say that word. So suicide. And it's similar. But here as spiritualists, you know that's not true. You know where they're at. You have the science behind you when someone comes through that whoever's given the message doesn't know that person. And so you know the science, you know the philosophy, and you know the religion. There's just as much religion as any other religion. There are over 3,000 religions. And to some degree they all teach, not they all, but the major ones. Let's say the major ones. You go to Jerusalem, you got three major ones. You got Christianity, you got Islam, and you got Judaism, which is not as major as Buddhism, but Buddhism, from what I hear, is more of a practice. It's not a religion. You practice Buddhism. They all talk about the continuity of life, but here you can talk about the continuity of life with confidence, because you've seen, you know, your third eye, your sixth chakra, you've seen, you heard, you have felt the experience of somebody coming through. So, where did the lost souls go? And was our son lost at that time? Yeah, he was lost at that time. He's not now. Gets married in 3 weeks. And he's turned his life around several years ago. But yeah, at the time he was lost. But Spirit has a way of hopefully guiding them on the path to where they're found